Hey guys, it's Boy, and today we'll be going over the Spider-Man villain known as Massacre. Now, Massacre is a very dark character that is also very tragic at the same time, and he's also just an interesting character, but it's sad because I doubt we'll ever see him in any TV show. I mean, he could show up in the video game at some point, but we'll just have to wait and see. But anyway, Massacre first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man number 655, written by Dan Slott. Now, this story took place after the Spider Slayer incident where Spider Slayers went crazy in New York and J.J. Jonah's wife died, and Spider-Man lost his spider sense. So in this story, you're dealing with the guilt that Spider-Man feels for this, as well as guilt from past sins, such as the death of Gwen Stacy, as well as the death of Norman Osborn after that, which he was impaled by his own glider. You also have him dealing with the guilt of the death of Ben Parker, or Uncle Ben, which is a big moving point for Spider-Man. But also during the story, towards the end, you have the police trying to negotiate with this guy who's holding these people hostage at this bank, and they're all wearing these bomb vests. And before they can even try to negotiate with the guy, he just kills somebody and leaves them out on the street. And this terrifies the cops because this guy is not for negotiating. He's completely insane. And this is where we're introduced to the villain, Massacre. Massacre's story then continued in Amazing Spider-Man number 656. And this story, Parker is finally over his guilt and his, feeling of sorrow for all this stuff, and he goes to deal with this bank thing. Well, while trying to swing in, his web flips off one of the buildings and he crashes into the car because the spider sense doesn't tell him that he made a bad shot. So Spider-Man being Spider-Man, he tries to go to negotiate with the guy who is completely off his, out of his mind. And Spider-Man goes up there and tells the hostages, like, look, chill, everything's gonna be okay. And that's when Massacre replies with, no, you don't get to tell them that because I'm the one in control here. He then starts firing at Spider-Man, who tries to dodge all of the bullets being fired at him by Massacre. But it's very hard to dodge bullets when you don't have a spider sense anymore. And during this beret of bullets, Spider-Man throws a spider tracer onto him, but he gets a little cocky, and during this time, he ends up getting shot in the stomach by Massacre, which is shocking because usually Spider-Man would be able to dodge this, which even the cops are like, how did you not dodge that? Massacre ends up getting away and the hostages are saved, but they find a bomb underneath everything. After this, Spider-Man goes to the night nurse to get patched up, where he then realizes he needs to get a better armor. He goes back to Horizon Labs and starts working on a suit, and during there, he starts talking to one of the people at Horizon Labs who's using this software to tell suspects of like what their past is, and they end up this file from Ravencroft about this guy named Marcus Lyleman. He and his wife worked at like Wall Street as advisors for people to invest in things. Well, apparently they gave someone a bad investment advice, caused them to lose all their money, so that person put a bomb in one of their cars. It blew up, killing his wife and causing a shrapnel of glass to get lodged in his head, causing him to lose all feeling of emotion towards people. So that was pretty much the origin of Massacre. And during this time, J. Jonah tells the cops, look, I want this guy taken care of because now he's taking over Wall Street. Well, Spider-Man finally shows up wearing his bulletproof costume you might recognize from the video game, and he goes in to deal with Massacre. Massacre has a dead man switch in his hand, and he also begins to fire at Spider-Man. However, the bullets bounce off this new suit because you gotta remember, Spider-Man can't dodge it now anymore, so he has to end up taking these gunshots. So that's what he does. And Massacre ends up getting pissed off and blowing a hole in the roof. After this, Spider-Man quickly webs up Massacre's hand to, keep him from blowing up everybody. He then kicks Massacre and causes him to become dazed. And while he's standing there, a bunch of red dots pop up on Massacre and he's about to be shot at by a sniper. Well, Spider-Man intervenes, saving Massacre from being killed and keeping his promise that no one else dies tonight. After this whole incident, Massacre is locked up in Ravencroft and then reappears in the Superior Spider-Man series. Now, for those who don't know who Superior Spider-Man is, Superior Spider-Man was this storyline where a dying Otto Octavius, or Doc Ock as most people know him as, switched consciousnesses with Peter Parker. So Doc Ock found out he's dying and he pulled one final move against Parker. And in this move, they switched places consciously. So Parker was in Ock's dying body, and Ock decided to try to be a better Spider-Man than he was to prove him wrong, Anyway, our story basically begins in Ravencroft, where Dr. Ashley Kafka and a guard are going to check on Massacre. The guard outside lets them in, and then they walk in to find the guard's body is actually in there, and Massacre has taken the place of the guard in disguise. Spider-Man shows up after the murder to look into the death and finds out Ashley Kafka's been murdered and J.J. Jonah's pissed. Meanwhile, Massacre shoots up a burger town because they don't give him the drink he wants. So after shooting up the burger town, Massacre then goes to the owner of the business, of like the whole entire industry of Burger Town, and tells her, look, I'll wear your company's rival's shirt while I go shoot up the Grand Central Station. All you gotta do is give me $12 million. Her being crazy, she agrees to do it. So, what does Massacre do? He goes into Grand Central Station and just starts shooting up everyone, just causing a complete massacre, as his name implies. And it is a very brutal scene. Luckily, Spider-Man shows up, or Otto Spider-Man shows up, and he quickly tries to deal with Massacre. Now, you gotta remember, Otto isn't really as experienced as Peter was, so he makes a couple mistakes, like when dodging one of the gunfire, a civilian is shot, but unlike the last time where Spider-Man fought him, he has the spider sense back, so it's a very easy fight for him. But Otto is a different type of Spider-Man. He's a lot more brutal. So he ends up dazing Massacre, and then he grabs the gun from Massacre and shoots him. He then brutalizes him in this very brutal scene, one of the most brutal scenes I'll say maybe in Spider-Man comics, although Kraven's Last Hunt's pretty brutal. And he has Massacre dead to rights with a gun to his head, and Massacre for once shows emotion, which is a big change for him because he's unable to show emotion. So him showing this was a big step, but Otto thinks the guy's too far gone, so he does something insane. He shoots Massacre point blank in the head and kills him. Massacre is then presumed dead, and J.J. Jonah respects Spider-Man for it. But unfortunately, this isn't the end of Massacre. Because just like any character in comics, no one stays dead. Just like Ock and Gwen, who returned during the event known as Spider-Man the Clone Conspiracy. In this story, you had the Jackal just revive all these older villains that Spider-Man either killed on accident or died in some way. And one of those people who was revived during that was none other than Marcus Lauerman, a.k.a. Massacre. But yeah, he's still alive, he just hasn't been used in years. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.